I think we need to be really thinking more about what's the kind of, I think, Don's referred to it as ecological engineering. What's the kind of almost interactive model and not just a responsive model? Don, in some of our side chats, have been mentioning this ecological engineering, and I'd like to hear her explore a little bit more what she means. And I think that actually will lead us to the governance, because that actually is as much a social model as it is an environmental model.
Yeah, it's actually a term that I picked up from David McConville from the Buckminster Fuller Institute, and it's just sort of come up in some of the questions that we've had coming in offline and on Twitter about what kinds of mechanisms we could use, such as the work that the Savory Institute has been doing around looking at bringing pasture animals into landscapes to be able to then actually improve the viability of that landscape and actually turn around trends towards desertification, or efforts that we might have around reforestation. How can we encourage people to and incentivize people to be doing rainwater catchment, green infrastructure in cities, a range of different things at their local level that would have a larger aggregate effect? And I think a big question that I've got for everyone is, some of these efforts have been set up as entrepreneurial efforts, as David McConville's pointed out to me. Some of them are not maybe very well set up in terms of our current business structure to be funded very easily. If we want to see massive reforestation in certain regions, I'm really curious as to what kinds of incentives we can see to be able to make that happen. Some of you may be able to speak to that. Is it corporations that can pay for it? What's the incentive for a corporation to invest in reforestation? Where are the mechanisms that are willing to actually pay for these kinds of efforts?
And Dawn, you've mentioned incentives a number of times. How can we incentivize the beneficial behaviors that we want to see? I'd rather start with removing the incentives that we have in place that are driving this machine right now. I think about that as an appropriate intervention point from a systems dynamics perspective. And politically, I think it's one of the most feasible strategies we have, because we have forces on the left and right that are opposed to the market distorting impacts of incentives. Look, just for a sense of scale, in the United States, we have subsidies to renewable energy on the scale of tens of billions of dollars. Globally, we have subsidies to the fossil fuel industry on the scale of perhaps $800 billion or so. Numbers vary, but most of them are coming in between $500 billion to $1 trillion subsidy to the fossil fuel industry. The fossil fuel industry, again, numbers are not exact, but is worth something like $7, $8, $9 trillion globally. The industry is getting subsidized to the tune of 10% of its market cap every year. What if we stopped doing that? What if we remove the subsidies that give us an effective price in the United States right now, what, $3.50 or $4 a gallon for gasoline, that according to some researchers is really costing us between $10 and $20 a gallon in total system costs. Now, if any of us had to pay $10 or $15 or $20 a gallon at the pump for gasoline, none of us would be driving the cars that we're driving today. And I would argue that nobody would be making the cars that we're driving today at $20 a gallon gasoline. So I think there's an incentive and there's an intervention point that could have significant leverage, particularly when we see that even today, a growing number of renewable-based alternatives are already competitive economically. If we level the playing field, we remove one of the driving pressures, and for all the work we need to do on adaptation, we need to stop doing the things that make the problem worse and drive it into runaway.